Man, that is annoying. What's going on, guys? Ben from JK Gear and Gadgets. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another video. Clearly, we're changing out these DV8 inner fender liners for something a little bit better. Let's go check them out. Here we have a set of new inner fenders from Hyline Offroad. This is the same company that I run the hood louver from. Great company, all made in the USA, and just honestly really well-built products. So in this video, we're going to install these, do a real quick install video, talk about fender liners themselves. What are inner fenders? Why do we need them? And what do you gain from them? And talk about some of the different options. Now, I know a lot of you guys are probably wondering, Ben, you have so many other projects you've been talking about. Yes, one of the big things for the JK that I've been planning to do is do a full DIY video series on front and rear long arms, building your own, how to set them up, how to get all the measurements and calculations for your suspension geometry. All that is coming up. Sadly, I need to make more room in my garage before I get started on a project that big. So we're going through some of these boxes, knocking out some of the smaller projects so I can have room in here to actually start working on the long arm video series. So stay tuned for that. In this video, we are starting off with the Hyline Offroad inner fenders. Whoo, it is hot today. Luckily, it's very nice out. Perfect day to make a video, but man, I'm gonna be sweating. It is hot here. So what are the purpose of inner fender liners on a Wrangler? Well, once we move to aftermarket fenders or cut our factory ones, you really can't reuse that factory plastic inner fender liner that comes with a Jeep. You know, some people do, you can cut it, trim it, and somehow, you know, zip tie it up in there to make it work. But switching to a set of inner fender liners that are actually aftermarket, they look better. For one, it makes the Jeep look a lot better. A lot of people do like custom painting, you know, on these little inserts right here. And that leads into the next thing. Most of them do have vents built in, dun dun dun. So that's like a, you know, a perforated mesh right there. And adding vents inside your wheel well is actually a really good idea because it lets a little bit of the heat out. Now, I know some people say, you're not letting any heat out. Well, personally, I think so. I mean, any type of ventilation outside of your engine bay is a good thing. Jeeps are extremely hot, so personally with, you know, inner fender liners that are vented and hood louvers, definitely does a really good job of cooling off the engine, just letting some of that heat escape. So we will get to the install in a minute. Let's talk about why I'm pulling these off. First off, they rattle like crazy. DV8s are a little bit cheaper than some of the others, and you know, they do work. I've had them for 2 years. However, rattling is just driving me insane. Secondly, ever since I moved to 40-inch tires and dropped the Jeep down to about a 3.5-inch lift, I'm actually rubbing right here. You can see a little bit of the red right there, some of the primer. Actually, I don't know if you can see it on the GoPro. I can see it in person though, but it does not have a good concave, and when my tires turn and flexed, it hits that every single time. Now, the great thing about these Hyline Offroad inner fenders is that they have a nice little box right there. So, yes, I said it has a nice little box right there. But as you can tell, instead of it just being, you know, kind of angling out, this tucks in, has a nice pocket. We're gonna install one side and then walk over, you know, compare this side to that side. But honestly, these things are sick. So I did go ahead and install this one, assembled it in the box. As you can tell, it comes with 3 pieces right in there, 1, 2, 3. And the little stainless, here we go. This guy right here, you can paint it to be, you know, whatever color you want. If you want to color match it with your Jeep, do red. You could paint it black so you don't see it. But honestly, assembling these is really easy. We have the instructions here. That is enough talking. Let's go ahead and rip out these old fender liners and start installing these new ones. So we have all the bolts off. I actually forgot that I did add a rock light right here to my inner fender a while back. So I'm gonna have to take those 2 nuts off the back in there and find a way to reinstall this light back on the new one. Let's talk about why I do not recommend leaving it like this. I know a few people will get aftermarket fenders, rip out their inner fenders and leave it just like this. Sure, it's easy to get access to all the parts and everything under here. We would get a lot of airflow, but honestly, there's a lot of important stuff down here that we don't want getting muddy, wet, and just, you know, covered in road grime. We have our steering gear box here, our, you know, steering shaft. We have our exhaust manifold, our O2 sensor, our starter. Lots of stuff under here that we do not want to get covered and caked in mud, water, and all that stuff repeatedly. It's gonna honestly make it fail quicker and in the future a lot harder to replace. If you've ever worked on a really muddy vehicle, you know what I'm talking about. And yes, even this isn't that clean, but imagine this being, you know, exposed all the time. It would be so dirty. So let's go ahead and start this install off. It's pretty simple. We're not going to go step by step. They have a bunch of great instructions on their website. They have a YouTube video, and it actually comes with instructions. But first thing we're going to do is pull off this little stud right here that the factory inner fender attached to. Pop open the hood. It's a 10mm. We're going to need an extension. Put it right in there and pop that off. Go ahead and remove this old clip that was on the front of the fender and reinstall the new one that they provided in the kit. We're gonna grab these 3 bolts that we took off from the top, reinstall those. And we are gonna have to drill a little hole here. Not a big deal. We'll get to that in a minute. Let's get these inside the fender well. There we go. Alrighty. Definitely looking pretty good. With the inner fender installed and started with those 3 screws, we can really start to see how good these look. This huge cutout here is gonna be really nice for the tires to sit up there and stuff in without rubbing at all. We have really easy access to our shocks. As you can tell before, you know, I'd have to remove the inner fender to change our shocks or, you know, mess with them at all. Now we have full access, and these inner fenders actually allow us to run the Teraflex Falcon shocks that have the piggyback that goes sideways, so that's a pretty cool option. It's also a lot easier to get access to our bump stop mount right here, and honestly, these things just look really good. Still not sure what I'm gonna do with this, our rock light right here. I don't want to put it back on the inner fender because the tires were getting really close to rubbing that during full flex. So I'm gonna leave this dangling for now and think about it once we finish up this install. Our next step after installing those 3 bolts is to grab one of the bolts that came in the kit and install it into our clip that we put up here in the fender. We're now gonna come down here and mark where we need to drill into this body mount. Now I really do like this design because it's gonna hold it up and out of the way from everything, and we're not gonna have to worry about rattling. The old DV8s actually didn't use that. You know, there's no drilling, but as you can tell, it just kind of sat there, so it would wiggle and hit that. I did have to put some electrical tape up behind there to prevent that rattling. So with this setup, we're not gonna have to deal with that. Yes, you do have to drill, but honestly, it's not that big of a deal. So we're gonna drill this out and put the new nut and bolt through. Now that we have this hole drilled, I will say that it's probably a little bit easier and smarter to remove the inner fender when you're drilling that hole. Mark it, then drill it. But personally, it's not that big of a deal to me. It's gonna be fine. One thing we do wanna do is make sure that we actually paint that exposed metal that we just drilled through. We don't want that to rust out in the future. So I'm gonna bend this back and put a little bit of paint up in there. We have 2 more bolts to go, and these 2 are gonna be kind of the hardest ones to get to. They're actually behind this fender here. So luckily with my MCEs, I can take out a couple of the bolts and kind of pry it out of the way. But there's one, and the other one is gonna go up here in that hole right there. Now these actually attach into nutserts, which are on the back of the inner fender. Got one right there and one right there. No more rattling, and overall these look so much better. Not only do they look better, they are a lot more functional. As you can tell, this cutout in here is so much better. We can now flex our 40, don't have to worry about hitting anything in there. We have better access to our shocks. We can run the Teraflex Falcons in the future if we want, and overall they just look a lot better. I actually went ahead and just zip tied my rock light up here to this fender support. We'll see if the tire hits it at full flex, but this just goes to show that not every inner fender set that's aftermarket is the same. I personally like these a lot better than most of them on the market. You get the most clearance, they look amazing. And speaking of looks, let's do a before and after. So here's before, and here's after. Yes, they are on different sides, but it's a little better than going back and forth. So I still have to go ahead and change out this side. I'm gonna do that real quick, knock that out. Hopefully Cassie's gonna be here in about 30 minutes and we will continue the video. Let's knock this side out. it's time to go ahead and bring this video to a close. I wanted just to make a, short and sweet JK install video because I do know that most of my past videos have been heavily revolving around the Gladiator. I got the whole family here. We're gonna get ready to go out to eat, but let's go ahead and wrap this video up. If you are looking for a set of aftermarket inner fenders that are actually functional, look good, and work with various aftermarket shocks, definitely get the Hyline Offroad. Personally, I would recommend getting the powder coated ones. Yes, they are a little more expensive, but that was a big mistake that I made with the DV8s. I ordered them raw to save some money, and of course, once you spray paint them, you have to keep them, you have to touch them up, and honestly, they just never look as good. So I'll throw a link to these in the video description. Go check them out, but overall, these are definitely top-notch, very high quality, and the install really wasn't that bad. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to give this video a big thumbs up. Go down in the comments, let me know what you think of these inner fenders. I know a lot of people actually are already running these, but they are a huge upgrade compared to the DV8s that I've been running for the past 2 years. Now this weekend, we're taking the Gladiator off-road, either Roush Creek or somewhere down in North Carolina, not sure yet. And it's time to test out the 35s. In the last video, did the cold air intake, threw the 35s on, and I still have a lot to talk about the 35s, on the road side of it. I want to get the 35s off-road with the truck, that way I can do a full review on how 35s handle and if they're a good upgrade for the Gladiator. So stay tuned for that video. We'll probably get some cool wheeling videos in of the Gladiator. Like I said, I don't know if I'm going to Pennsylvania or North Carolina. We will see. Thanks for watching, guys. Like always, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for the next video. Peace.